Hello everyone, it's the Hobby Dabbler. Today I'm going to be making a face with acrylic paints, and I'm going to be doing it very freestyle, very loosely. The colors aren't going to make a lot of sense. I picked a palette of colors that I liked, and I put a bunch of paint on my palette, and then I'm just going to keep going with my paint until all my paint is gone. And at first, I'm just starting with flesh tones, but then I'm going to get into some weird and wonderful colors to make her more interesting. And I'm using acrylics. I believe I'm using Liquitex, Medine, and some Dollar Rowney. And I'm just going in, as you can see, really loosely, putting paint wherever, dabbing a little bit of this color, a little bit of that color. And I'm just having fun with it. This wasn't something that I really wanted to do very precisely. I just wanted my colors to blend and mix in weird ways and see what I ended up with. Painting this way can be very freeing when you don't really have an idea in mind. You just go with what colors you have and see what you end up with. So there I'm going in with the kind of crazy colors. And she's gonna end up looking pretty different from my sketch, and that's okay. I mean, I did the sketch just as a loose starting point. So I used blues and greens and teal and some pinks and purples as my kind of vibrant colors, and then I just used a bunch of flesh tones for the base layer. I probably didn't even need the base layer, but I thought, why not? So you can see I've painted over some of the features, and I'll have to go back in and add some detail back in. But for now, I'm just kind of messing around with my paint. I'm trying to follow kind of where highlights and shadows would be on the face, though it's not a simple task when you have multiple colors. And it's starting to look a little bit too green. Everything kind of mixed into a greeny color. So I'm gonna go back in with more vibrant colors after I do some of this flesh tone again, because it just wasn't looking the way I wanted it to. And you can just be really free with your painting. And I just wanted to use up all my paint on my palette and just keep going, keep trying. I mean, it's not going to be perfect. I never intended it for it to be perfect. Well, I'm looking for whimsical and kind of wonky. So, if you want to give this method a try, just add colors to your palette and go for it. You know, sketch out a loose face and just start adding color and see where it ends up. It can be just an interesting experiment. So now I have a smaller brush and I'm trying to go back in with some of the details like her eyelids and her nose. I'm going to start on her hair. Now hair is not my forte. I have trouble with hair. I'm never sure just how to make it flow properly. But I wanted her to have big curly hair in purple. So this is the best way I know how to do curly hair. If you know a better way, that please leave a comment and let me know what your advice is. I always kind of struggle with hair. So I'm just going in with a whole bunch of different shades of purple. At this point, she's kind of looking zombie-ish. And that's okay too. If she's a zombie girl, even better. I think she's cool as a zombie girl. So now I'm a bit off screen, but I'm just painting her shirt right now. There we go. And again, just really loose paint strokes. Lay down the paint wherever you feel like. Okay, I'm gonna give it a dry because now I want to go back in and start adding some of the details. And it is hard to add details when you have wet paint. Okay, now I'm gonna pull out my Pigma pens, and you saw me scratching away at it a little bit at the lips. There was kind of a lumpy ridge where there was too much paint there, so I'm having a hard time drawing over top of it with my Pigma pen. So I pull out a watercolor black pencil, and I'm gonna start using that. And the nice thing about the watercolor is that after you put it on and you activate it with water, it'll really darken up and it'll start to look really vibrant. So I thought that would look pretty good with her face right now. So just going in and doing the details. Putting her eyelids back on. Now she needs some eyebrows. And it occurred to me after that I probably should have done the eyebrows the same color as the hair, but hey, maybe she dyed her hair purple and her original hair color's black. Who knows? Okay, now I'm looking for a color to do her eyes in. I wanted her eyes to really stand out, so I'm looking for a light blue, and that's just an acrylic pen. And then my black acrylic pen to darken up her pupil, giving her a bit of highlight on her nose. And then I'm going to go around and I'm going to add white all the way around the border and give her hair some highlights as well. So after I did the white outlining, I started to go in with my watercolor pencil again and doing some shading where I thought that she needed a bit more shade on her face to make it a little more detailed, a little more lifelike. I wasn't going for lifelike in this picture, not real life. I was going for kind of cartoony. Now I'm going to take some watercolors, just pan watercolors, and add in some more shadows and highlights. And then there you go. Now you can see that when I activate that watercolor pencil, it really gets dark and beautiful. So I didn't like the color of her lips, so I wanted to darken them up. Now I'm trying to do the kind of dimple underneath your nose, but it just wasn't working out, so I took it off. And I'm gonna add some black to her hair. Her hair just didn't seem right to me still. And I'm also going to go all the way around the border with some black. I thought that white outline was way too stark. Okay, so now I'm going to go in with my Pigma pen and do some outlining. But, of course, it was a bit too wet, so I needed to dry it first. The Pigma pens are great, but they definitely do not work if your page is even a little bit wet. So I didn't want to wreck my Pigma pens, so out comes the dryer. So now I'm doing her eyelashes. I'm just kind of outlining everything, making everything darker, rounder. Trying to bring her eyes to life a bit. And now I'm going in with highlights in her eyes and her lips to really make them come alive. And I decided that I didn't want the background to be completely stark white. So I'm just going to go in with some watercolors, a light kind of washed background. And this is just a big soft brush. You just get it really wet and with your watercolors, and then you get kind of a washed background. Now again everything is soaked, so out comes the dryer once again. I do a lot of drying in my artwork. I should let it dry by hand, by air, but I'm just not patient enough. And now I'm gonna start doodling on her. I wanted her to be whimsical and weird and wonky, and she just seemed like she needed something more, so I like to doodle on my projects. I think it gives them a bit of whimsy. I'm just using symbols and vines and, twirly things, and then as I'm looking at her, I'm thinking, she's looking rough, like she's lived. And the quote, live, laugh, love, came to mind. This woman looks like she's lived, laughed, and loved. She's, you know, she's a little haggard, she's a little worn from life. And I guess maybe that's how I was feeling that day. Because she started off kind of a cute little girl looking thing, and then she turned into kind of a haggard witch doctor look. And I guess that was how I must have been feeling, because, you know, as you do your art, your inner self tends to come out. So I was feeling a bit rough that day. So I added all the little details, and now I think she's done. So thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to subscribe. Bye!